Well, today is a very special day because we are talking to Dr. David Heber, and you are so very accomplished. I'm just going to not bury the lead and say it off the bat. You're also my father. So I'm so happy to have you here. This is a long time coming. But before we get started, I'm going to sort of throw off all your accomplishments or not throw off, but really tout you because you're an incredible man and also incredibly humble. So you won't say it yourself. So I will. You're not only an MD, but a PhD, went to UCLA undergrad, Harvard Med School. Started the Center for Human Nutrition at UCLA. You've written countless books, a best-selling author. You've helped countless people also as well in losing weight, and really one of the pioneers in nutrition as a physician. What am I missing? Oh, right, father to an amazing daughter. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding on that part. You're also my hero. So I didn't want to just have you on, Daddy, because to me, you're the most special person in the world. But also, I think you've touched so many lives around the globe, and you really have a lot to say. You have such an engaged audience, especially on Instagram, which matters to us. So I want to welcome you. I hope that was a warm welcome first. And also, I want to kind of understand about your background in nutrition. You were a doctor, but what made you want to go that way back in the 1980s?
Well, I started out, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. It's fantastic. Uh,
Yeah.
I started out in the 1960s, actually at UCLA as an undergraduate, as a chemistry major, working with a professor, a Nobel Prize winner, who invented radiocarbon dating, which is how we know how old things are in history. It has to do with a radioisotope of carbon. Carbon 13 decays to carbon 12 over about a half-life of 5,000 years. So that's how we know when the Egyptian pyramids were built and all that stuff. And he was also a space scientist, so I worked on the lower atmosphere of Venus and stuff. And from there, I went to med school. And when I came back, while I was in med school, I actually integrated all of the concepts of chemistry into what I was studying in each organ system. So if you think about it, nutrition is all about chemistry, whether it's vitamins, minerals, fats, proteins, or carbohydrates that we can talk about. It's all about chemistry. We're made of chemicals. And how we interact with our environment is important for our overall health. We breathe in oxygen, for example, and oxygen actually can get to be harmful as well as beneficial. And so you have to eat certain foods to counteract the effects of oxygen when we're using it to make energy in our bodies. So there's a lot to nutrition. Unfortunately, everyone who eats thinks they're an expert in nutrition. So there's a lot of information out there on the internet. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong. I hope in this time together, we can get rid of some of the myths and some of the misinformation that's out there and talk about what's really important. If you want to design the best diet for yourself and for good health and for longevity, what that diet ought to be.
I remember, and speaking of longevity, I don't know if this is true, but you said to me as a young kid, you wanted to your goal was never die. And so for that
Right.
reason, right? Because I think a lot of young people think about that, like, well, how am I going to stay on earth forever? And maybe with AI, we can eventually. But is that what got you into medicine in the first place? Is this idea of trying to cure all the cancers and any diseases and trying to find the way to live forever?
Right, or live the best. It turned out I was about age 5 or so when I heard about death, and I wasn't excited about the idea. So then I decided I'd become a doctor and a professor of doctors so that when they figured out the solution to everlasting life, I would be in on the inside. So I'd kind of
Nice.
get the lowdown on it. And
I
then a close second was Garbage Man because I thought it was really cool how the truck went by our house and, all of that. But
That's
anyway, but anyway, from there, I did get very scientific, very nerdy, as you know, I'm a proud nerd.
yes.
And from there, I've been at UCLA for 40 years, from 1980, well, actually the 1983, a little more than 40, 42 years at UCLA. And before that, 5 years at the county hospital down in Torrance Harbor General Hospital. And I started as an endocrinologist working. My PhD was on a nasal spray birth control that didn't work for men or women, but turned out to be a drug for prostate cancer and other things. And then from there, I was doing all this very esoteric research, and I came home. I couldn't explain what I was doing to my wife of 55 years, your mom, Anita, and I couldn't explain it. And I thought to myself, I've got to start working on something practical. So first, I worked on nutrition and cancer, why people with cancer lose weight. And I was running a metabolic unit funded by the federal government. We had 12 beds. And it was really hard to find cancer patients at the right stage to study. So I started getting into the flip side, which was obesity and diabetes and things like that. And as time went on, just fate took me along a certain route to where today we know 40% of people are obese, 60% are overweight, and that's what people are struggling with. And obesity and overweight are linked to about 130 different diseases, the most prominent of which is diabetes, or diabesity, as I like to call it. And there are many, many drugs now that have been developed in the recent past, such as semaglutide, which we'll talk about, which is part of a whole family of what they call GLP-1 agonist drugs. And people are taking these for weight loss. And then, of course, the other thing, since this is called Not So Hollywood, over the years, I've had a ton of various actors, producers, people from the Hollywood community, especially in the 1990s, when then the miracle drug for weight loss was something called fen-phen.
Okay.
And it was a real hot item at that time. And I was involved in a lot of that. And
But
as a result, well,
Fen-Phen was compared to sort of like a speedy product.
well, part of it was phentermine had been around for a very long time. Phentermine is basically an upper. It's still around, by the way, today. It's limited to short-term use, although some doctors use it for a longer period of time. Fenfluramine was made in France, and it is the opposite. It's a serotonin-based drug rather than an upper, and it kind of calms you down. So the way we used to use it was phentermine in the morning, and then the fenfluramine in the afternoon to kind of reduce food craving. And used appropriately, it was fine. The problem was that people started using very high doses of it and using it off the way it was supposed to be done. And that's always the problem that comes up.
Abusing it,
Abusing it. And that's
essentially.
what happens even now with the modern drugs. So
That's a good
drugs
point.
are not the total answer. Even if you're taking one of these new drugs, you've got to do the proper diet, proper exercise to maintain your healthy body. What we're finding is with these new GLP-1 drugs, what it does is it slows it slows your stomach movement, and the stomach uh, fills up too much quickly, and so you can't eat enough food to get adequate nutrition. And we find that people are losing muscle. As they lose weight, they're losing more muscle than usual. Now, getting back to the not so Hollywood part here, actors told me that as soon as they came to Hollywood in the old days, they would be under contract to a studio. And part of their contract was that they had to lose weight. And they were followed very closely in terms of weight loss. And the reason for that is that the camera lens is a 35 millimeter lens, which is actually a wide angle lens. So when you're on camera, you actually look heavier than you do in real life. And this has remained true to the present time. So a lot of actors and actresses would come to see me, usually for losing weight. A couple of times, I had one actor who came to me because he wanted to starve safely for a part that he was going to play. And then I have never had anybody come to me from the Hollywood community saying they want to gain weight. That hasn't happened so far. But
Although
I
it
think
does happen for roles. And the thing is, you're so right. Like when you look at, I mean, there are so many actors and actresses who I come in contact with, and I thought like, and imagine if I was just in the public and ran into my favorite star or whatever, and you're like, wow, they are so much smaller in person. And then you start hearing eating disorders and things like that. But yeah, when you're on film and you're appearing larger than life, but also bigger in body. Like, of course, you want to be as slim as possible. In person, it might not look as healthy, but on camera, it kind of looks perfect.
right. And it's a very personal thing. Body shape is very personal. It's genetically determined as well as your diet and lifestyle,
Mhm.
both. And so and then women's bodies change throughout life. And so the basics of nutrition are as follows. First of all, the most prominent nutrient in your body is water. Turns out our bodies are two-thirds water. And if you lose as little as 2% of your body water, you can get fatigue. People actually can die after a few days of dehydration. The next most important nutrient after water is protein. And it turns out the amount of protein you need in your body is directly related to the amount of protein that you have in your body. So it's the dietary protein matching to the body protein. So a smaller person might need less protein, a larger person needs more protein. And the type of protein is important. It has to be high quality protein, and it has to be a variety of different proteins. The next important thing is controlling carbohydrates. It turns out that this is a common element because carbohydrates and sugar both hit your reward center in your brain. So you know people that go to the restaurant, they get the basket of chips and they get a second basket of chips, or get some bread and, oh, could you bring some more bread and all that stuff. That's all of that. And then also the best-selling soft drinks full of sugar, that also hits your reward center. It's right next to the center for cocaine. It's this reward, and people are not addicted in the sense of withdrawal seizures, but there are a lot of super consumers of these junk foods who actually have them all the time and in response to stress and overeating. So the other group is fat, and your body fat basically comes either from the fat you eat or the fat you make from carbohydrates, and carbohydrates go very efficiently to fat. Why do I bring this up? Because the average person in America eats about 300 grams a day of carbohydrate, and they really should be eating around 130. But there's not even a requirement for carbohydrate because you can take your protein and convert it into carbohydrate. So when we talk about things like the keto diet, what actually happens is you're on such low carbohydrate, you're like basically having a half an apple and a piece of vegetable per day, and very high fat. What you're doing is you're breaking down your protein because the protein is made of what are called amino acids, and a couple of these actually can be converted to glucose or sugar. And so your body needs that to run the brain and the red blood cells. And so you will break down protein on that diet. So it's very important to maintain your protein. So you got to take in 1 gram per pound of your lean body mass per day. And you can determine that with a measurement, or you can estimate it. We can
Well,
talk
say
about,
somebody's about 100 pounds. I'm just you throwing that
oh
number
yeah,
out.
100 pounds of, let's say, so I'm going to estimate that 100-pound person is maybe 75 or 80 pounds of lean. They need 75 to 80 grams of protein. Next, let's say that the boyfriend is 150 pounds of lean. He weighs 180 pounds. So he will burn 2,100 calories a day from that 150 pounds of lean. The woman who's 75 pounds of lean might only burn about 1,000 calories a day. So it's very easy for her to gain weight if she eats the same food as the boyfriend. And if they were trying to lose weight, the boyfriend would lose a couple pounds a week on 1,500 calories a day, and she wouldn't lose anything even on 1,200. She'd be starving and not losing weight. And you say, well, your problem is willpower. It's not willpower, it's lack of metabolism. She doesn't have as high a metabolism as the boyfriend. So protein and exercise to maintain the activity of the muscle to burn calories. Every 10 pounds of muscle you have burns 140 calories. So the key to maintaining weight is maintaining your muscle mass, eating enough protein, exercising 150 minutes a week, about 30 minutes a day for 5 days. And those are kind of some basics that you can use in terms of losing weight.
So it sounds like genetics do play a small factor. It also sounds like nutrition is a very specific sort of program based on who you are individually, and it's not really a one-size-fits-all approach.
Correct. That's so true, because if you look at the government guidelines, they'll think that the average American eats 2,000 calories a day. But the 2,000 calories a day is enough to have your average woman gain 50 pounds a year. So when you look at all these guidelines, they're all influenced by food lobbyists, by the food industry, and the foods we have, about 70% are what are called ultra-processed foods. And these are foods like, the center of the marketplace, all of the cereals and the soft drinks and the candy, cookies and the cakes and the breads that don't have fiber. So what you want to do is fill your diet with fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. In 2001, I wrote a book called What Color is Your Diet? And that was a national bestseller. And the idea was use your eyes to see the colorful fruits and vegetables in the grocery store. And a typical fruit is maybe 70 calories, typical vegetables 50. So I recommended 7 servings a day, 7 different colors, each of which have different families of antioxidants in them. And they go to different parts of your body. So spinach, which is green, goes to the back of your eye and helps preserve your vision, etc. Well, the truth of the matter is most people never wander over to the produce section. They're always in the middle of the store buying the high sugar, high fat, high taste kind of things that are being pushed at you. And the interesting thing is they use colors to market these processed foods. So red means warmth, green means natural, blue means low price. Each color has kind of a code to it. And food marketers know to use color to market foods.
I mean, that is just so much wonderful information right there. And I think it's, a simple tweak in somebody's shopping experience could be to go through the door where you start with the produce.
Exactly. That's where you should start. You should go around the outside of the store. And, when you get to the dairy counter, get your low fat or non fat varieties. Make sure that you get very low fat meats if you're going to have meats. If you want to be, by the way, more people, especially in your generation, are vegetarians or vegans. And this can be a very healthy diet as long as you get a variety of foods. So you get all the different amino acids and protein that you need. You just have to be careful to combine rice and beans or corn and beans and all these kinds of things. Tofu and soy, by the way, are complete proteins, as are many of the beans that you can get out there. So beans and rice, beans and corn will give you the proper things. And then we have a lot of vegan foods now that are complete proteins, and those are
Okay,
things you
but
can.
but before we get to those, I do
Yeah.
have to get the semaglutides because for
Oh yeah.
my generation right now, I have many, many friends who take semaglutides, some of them who maybe do need it for health benefits and some because they want to drop 5 pounds. What are the short-term benefits, the long-term potential risks? Do you think this is a jab for everybody? Can everybody take this? Do you think that it should be designated to a specific group of people? And then are the overall benefits, do they outweigh the risk? Now that was a
Well,
lot, so you can
sure.
break it
No,
down.
it's okay.
If
Well,
anyone about that,
the
it's you.
the GLP-1, the original hormone, is in your gut, and what it's for is to stimulate insulin secretion. So it's a very short-lived. It lasts about 30 seconds to a couple minutes, and then there's an enzyme that breaks it down. So it's a signal that is part of a large symphony that regulates your hormones in response to a meal. The GLP-1 agonist, part of it was developed from a Gila monster poison, actually, and it has a different kind of function. What it does is it sticks there, and you have activation of its receptor for a long period of time. And with the weekly injection, you're getting a very high level of activity. What is that activity? Well, in your stomach, it slows down motion. In your brain, it gets rid of the craving for foods. And so people say their food noise is gone. So
Right.
people like that. So this is a great drug for people who need it. If you're fairly obese and you have type 2 diabetes under the guidance of your doctor, this is a great drug. And by the way, it's not only going to be injectable, but they're working now on oral formulations. So far, they're not as potent as the injectable ones, but they are going to be out there in the future. And the other thing is, we're finding that most people who do this do it for about a year and then they stop and they don't regain all their weight. They take on some new lifestyle habits, regain part of their weight. So we're finding that people are overall losing about 6 to 7% of body weight, not the 20% that you saw in the controlled studies, but they're also not regaining the weight when they stop. So most people are using it for about a year. Now, as far as people using it for in Hollywood, just to and we see a lot of people on TV who kind of guess, oh, that person's using it.
Oh, 100%. It was
100%.
like an influx. We would show
Right,
up if I show up at an event today, it's
right.
like, wow, what happened to everybody? Like people just lost really dramatic weight loss. You almost can't recognize
Right. And
crowd.
it's not physiological. So it is a drug. We don't haven't it hasn't been around long enough for us to see the effects, but there are potentially theoretical, very serious side effects of this particular drug. In addition, first of all, because of the reduction in motility, you can get an obstruction in the intestine. Theoretically, you get nausea and vomiting. There is a stimulation of the pancreas, and that can cause abnormalities in the pancreas over time. So we don't know everything about this yet, and we won't until it's been out there for 20 years. Then we'll start to see things. A good example, I'll tell you, is from your mom, actually. She took these bone strengthening drugs like Fosamax back when she was in her 50s. and just had a fracture of her bone, and also danger. She hasn't had this, but some women get necrosis of their jaw from these bisphosphonate drugs that they use for bone health. That wasn't discovered right away. I mean, when she was in her 50s, they had all these women's clinics out there, people doing bone scans, and everybody getting this almost as soon as they turned 50. And then it was many, many years later that they started to discover the jaw necrosis first, and then these atypical fractures of the thigh bone, the femoral fractures, came up much later. So it's often many, many years before you see the side effects. So I'm not a fan of using any of these drugs just for cosmetic weight loss. And I know that people suffer a lot with the problems of being overweight. But if you really seriously need it, yes, see your doctor and get it. But if you're just doing this off label, so to speak, I wouldn't do it.
Right, because you have a girls' trip coming up in a week and want to lose that last 5 pounds.
Yeah, no, that's never a good idea. There's lots of ways to lose weight. The healthiest is exercise and lots of protein. You know, you can, the thing I've done a lot of research on over the years are what are called meal replacement shakes. These are out there all over the place. You use one that was made by a football quarterback. There's all these different ones out there.
No,
Yeah,
literally, you got me into drinking smoothies because
yeah.
for me, what I love about it is there's the complete protein, which you're talking about in there. So I know I'm being well fed and nourished. They're satisfying. I actually look forward to it. It's actually really, really enjoyable. I think they're delicious. You could put bananas in and berries. And if you want cinnamon, I add cinnamon to mine. And then you could use soy milk or a different type of milk, regular milk, if that's your jam, not mine. But the point is, it's a complete, and by the way, let me just say, you still make the best smoothies of all time.
Thank you.
I will let anybody challenge you on that. I know you'll win. But my point is, I don't have to worry about it in the morning. I know what I'm going to. I love the taste of it. It's satisfying. It takes me throughout until lunch, and I feel good to go.
And it's
You know,
super convenient. If you're going for an early flight on an airplane, and it's a few minutes to make it. You have a little blender that I use. And, you know, I've done this now forever. I mean, for many, many, many years. And I think, you know, you can always offset some of your mistakes you're going to make because nobody's perfect when they eat. They often are going to eat something because they want to or have a celebration or whatever. To offset that, you're not going to die of starvation as long as you have the protein, eliminate the carbohydrate and the fat. So there's some carbohydrate in these shakes. I try to use frozen berries, as you know, pomegranate, things like that. And then you will mobilize your body fat for energy as you exercise. And by the way, people always talk about burning fat. Do you know the easiest way to burn fat is you get on an exercise bicycle or a treadmill at a low rate, or a Pilates at a low rate of work, and 70% of the energy you're burning is from your body fat. And that's
people,
amazing.
people are talking a lot now, especially women. There's different fads, especially with working out and diets throughout. It seems like it's kind of every couple of years there's a new thing that people are on. Women are all about lifting heavy weights now.
That's good, actually. Resistance exercise is good, but it doesn't substitute for the aerobic. Um, the resistance exercise will build your muscle. A lot of women say they don't want to bulk up, but if
Same,
you
I
do
don't.
high repetitions at a low weight, that will strengthen your bones because it actually resistance exercise puts force lines in your bones and strengthens the bones. It's the best way to strengthen your bones, better than drugs. And you need to do that throughout your lifespan, especially after menopause. After age 50, we talk to women about having protein and resistance exercise as well as aerobic exercise. You do both. And it doesn't take that much time to do good resistance exercise. We have all kinds of machines now that can help you get through this quickly. In 30, 45 minutes, you're done. And I exercise wherever I go in the world. I find hotels with gyms, and you definitely I have a gym at home, and I exercise. And that's one of the best investments you can make, by the way, is in a home gym. You don't have to wait for anybody to finish using the machine. You can do it at home. And whenever I had an extra few bucks, I put it over the years, into my home gym. So home gym, shakes, and then for your diet, lean meats and fish, lots of vegetables to fill up the plate, cut down on the breads and the cakes and the cookies. That doesn't mean never. An 80-20 approach would be good if you
I
can
like
do it. 20% of it, because give your, YOLO, right? You only live once.
Oh,
So
baby.
yeah, YOLO. So you want to get through your life and have fun, but you don't want to be addicted and using food as a stress reducer. So if you're using your food in the wrong way, other than for nutrition, then you're not helping yourself.
I want to talk about, because you mentioned it already, about menopause,
Yeah,
perimenopause. This is no joke for women today. First of all,
correct.
there is, because I still hear women say there's not enough information on it. And yes, that's true, but there is a heck of a lot more information than there used to be. And seeing as though this is your background, okay, as an
Right.
endocrinologist dealing with hormones, I'm so grateful that there's more information today on perimenopause, menopause, HRT. So this is a big thing for me and my a lot of my friends who are dealing with the we as women in our 40s are feeling like um we don't know what's going on with us. We start feeling depressed, anxious, irritable, putting on weight, and can't seem to get control of things that we used to have control over in our daily lives and never used to struggle with. So, what is your take on hormones? I remember they used to be controversial back in the day. What
Yeah,
is your
the reason for that is I was part of the Women's Health Initiative. It was a study back in around 2000s, and we recruited women over the age of 60 and looked at the effects of estrogens. And actually, we're looking at a drug called Premarin, which is based on horse estrogens. And the the results were that the women who already had heart disease, it got a little bit worse, whatever, and they were worried about the causing breast cancer, etc. But what we found out is that, in fact, since then, studies have shown that in younger women who are in perimenopause, it's safe to use estrogens for a short period of time, especially through what we call the menopausal transition, the sleep disturbance, the depression, the mood changes, and actually will help with muscle building because estrogen is the strongest anabolic hormone in women. Although some people are now recommending anabolic androgens also for women to build muscle, although I don't quite go that far. It
what
depends
is
on,
that? Testosterone?
like testosterone and actually synthetic androgens. And the issue for me is I like women to appear feminine, and I think that if you get too much muscle, you can start to get secondary characteristics and start looking more like a man, and you don't really
I
want
mean,
that.
listen, I do not want hair growth, no
Right,
extra growth, and I'm okay with my neck looking like that. No, I don't want to bulk. I don't want to look any more manly. I
correct.
spent lots of money to get rid of that hair on my body.
Right. There are some women who do like the bulking. They're in weightlifting contests,
Right.
they're bodybuilders. Fine. Everybody, each to his own. But I think that for most women, they don't want to bulk up. And if they don't want to bulk up, lower weights, higher reps will get you fit without getting bulked up. And you can always check your body composition. There's a machine called a bioimpedance meter, and it's a little electrical device. You put a couple of electrodes in your hands and feet. They have other ones where you stand on a scale. They have some that you can do at home that aren't very expensive. And they give you an estimate of how you're building up your muscle over time.
And back to the hormones. So
Yeah,
HRT, hormone replacement therapy.
right,
I want to just share because as you knew what I was going through, I thought I was going to have to change my psych meds. I'm on Lexapro. I thought I was going to have
right.
to change to something else that they just pooped out on me. But last year, about a year and a half ago, I started not feeling well again, just very mentally out of it, really fatigued, deeply fatigued, where I would sleep all night and then I would need a nap at 1 p.m. again. I didn't understand that. No energy, kind of lifeless, very depressed and anxious. And my doctor suggested that maybe I try HRT. And I'm on the lowest dose of both progesterone and estrogen. It's been about a month. And I will say that I've noticed a vast improvement. Now, I'm kind of skeptical, and not skeptical, that's the wrong word. I'm hesitant to say that because I'm nervous that that is not going to be here forever. But I feel so much more like myself again. And to me, I want to share that for at least for me, the benefits are so tremendous that if you're feeling any of these symptoms, it might be worth a conversation with your doctor. So
Absolutely. No, during the 40s is when the ovaries start reducing their estrogen production. And estrogen is very important for feeling of well-being and so forth. And I would recommend that they check with their doctor, do some blood tests, see where they are, and also check their menstrual cycle because you have changes in the last 10 days of the menstrual cycle. What's called the luteal phase starts to change length. as you get into your later 40s. So this is something that, we've never done this kind of fine tuning of the human body in the past. It was just like, I know my parents' generation, people just went through and they just lived their life and whatever happened, happened.
What would they do? No, no, I really need to know. I
Oh
heard
my God. They
hysteria.
people would have their teeth pulled out and they had wore dental plates
No,
starting,
not even that. I'm wondering what happened with the severe anxiety and depression when women would feel this, and there were
oh,
no such treatments
people
for.
suffered in silence. There was so much depression that people didn't even hear about. I mean, this was in the 50s. I mean, people just didn't even talk about what was bothering them. There were mental hospitals. If you complained too much, they took you to a state mental hospital. There
Let's
just was.
stop away from that. I didn't get my HRT. Didn't they say,
uh,
I don't know if you know this, but you know basically everything. Doesn't the word hysteria come from hysterectomy or vice
comes from
versa?
the word for uterus. Yeah, hysteria.
And women,
The doctors were so awful. I mean, basically, they would think that women were just nuts and that all this stuff came somehow from the uterus. And a hysterical woman would be a woman who had a long list of physical complaints. And if the list was a certain length, oh, that's a hysterical woman, meaning you didn't even have to pay attention to it. It was a catch-all. It's like some of these diagnoses we have, like irritable bowel syndrome. Obesity for a long time was not considered a disease. It was considered just a psychiatric disorder in the 1950s. So we have come a long way. And I'll tell you, in many areas, the technology of medicine is so great now. As you age, many of the diseases of aging are being tackled with improved diagnosis, improved medication, improved technology. And with artificial intelligence, which you mentioned, I'm in one nonprofit which is looking at the composition of foods. And not just the protein, the carbohydrate, and the fat, but 15 or 20 different nutrients in each food. And I can foresee where we're going to measure things in your body with wearable devices where you, just like with I monitor my sleep with my smartwatch. I monitor my pulse rate, my heart rate, whether my heart's normal or not, all those kinds of things. You can measure your blood sugar now with wearable devices. And in the future, I think we're going to have many, many different nutrients measured in the sweat in the area between your skin cells and match that to the food you eat. And then the foods we eat are going to be foods of the future. They're going to be grown under controlled light and air conditions. They have these huge places where they're going to grow foods, not in the soil out in the wild, but it's going to be in a controlled environment, optimizing the nutrients, genetically selected foods that are going to have high levels of antioxidants. And then who knows what that's going to do to the human lifespan. We may live a lot longer than we do now.
I mean, that's wild because we used to hear like genetically modified foods were so bad. And now you're saying that it could be a really great thing for us.
Well,
Mod-
yeah, it depends.
Modified.
The GMO foods originally were there to reduce the use of pesticides, and and they were mainly for being able to profit from the growth of the same crop in a more efficient way. What I'm talking about is different. It's actually matching the 100,000 different compounds that are in plants to your body. It turns out that 2/3 of all drugs come from the plant world, and those plant substances have tremendous potential health benefits. Some of them lower cholesterol, some of them help with your vision, with your brain. I did a study with a friend of mine on memory using curcumin, which is in turmeric, and that helps reduce inflammation in the brain. So the possibilities of extending the health span, which is the time that you're healthy, even more so than lifespan, is out there. And we can get there. It's just going to take time and serious research. You can't biohack your way to longevity. I mean, a cold plunge and red lights on your face, it's not going to work. And it's the true
Neutron.
science and moving things forward that's really going to help.
Okay. So we started the interview by talking about, I think you said something interesting, which is everybody who eats is an
Right,
expert in nutrition, right?
right.
So since you really are the expert in nutrition, one of the forefathers and the pioneers of nutrition, I wanted to just kind of like hit a couple topics really quickly that we may have even gotten
Sure.
through, and you kind of give me like a quick take on them. Ready? So
Okay,
these are
sure.
polarizing nutrition topics that are hot today. Soy, healthy or not?
Healthy. very healthy. Studies in my own laboratory. Soy has an antioxidant in it called genistein and daidzein. They're anti-estrogen. They're not even estrogens. Women in Japan who eat soy have lower levels of breast cancer than people in the United States. And by the way, these substances that are so-called soy estrogens are actually destroyed in cooking. So anytime that soy is processed or cooked or boiled, they're gone anyway. So this big scare, a lot of it was started by the dairy industry because they sued the soy folks. You can't call that soy milk, it's soy beverage. And they want to have dairy milk. I'm not against dairy or soy, it's a choice. They both have benefits, but soy is extremely healthy. Nothing wrong with it.
For
It's a
men as well,
protein.
'cause
Oh
I've
yeah,
noticed
absolutely.
men.
And I don't know where that got started from. Somebody put something on the internet about soy and prostate cancer. Nonsense. We
Oh,
did studies on soy and prostate cancer. Perfectly safe. Not only safe, it's beneficial.
love it, because that's like half my diet. Testosterone for women, quick.
Well, real quick, it builds bone, builds muscle. And it depends on the woman. You know, there's some women where they do better on on testosterone, and I would consult your OBGYN about how you're doing and use their clinical experience as to whether a small amount of testosterone wouldn't be beneficial. And then there are androgens that are not testosterone that have similar effects on muscle and bone that you could also look at.
Plant-based diets versus keto. Now, keto is the, go ahead.
Sure. Well, the keto diet's kind of fading away. I mentioned that the keto diet is one where you really severely restrict carbohydrates. And in the first 2 weeks, you're going to have a lot of fatigue because you don't have any carbohydrates in your diet. If you can get through the first 2 weeks, you can live on those fats. Because remember, the human body can live on any amount of fat or carbohydrate. The one thing you have a requirement for is protein. What I don't like about the keto diet, very low protein because the protein can form glucose, which then undercuts the ketogenesis of the keto diet. Now, the plant-based diet is the healthiest diet you can possibly have. 7 servings a day of fruits and vegetables, adequate amounts of protein, and enjoy all the different colorful fruits and vegetables, a small amount of whole grains, and right amount of protein for your body. That's what I recommend.
Intermittent fasting.
Again, we all do intermittent fasting, by the way. If you go to sleep, you don't eat while you're sleeping. So you can, if you go to sleep and you're asleep for 8 hours, you're not eating that time. Now, if you stop eating after dinner, say you stop eating at 7 p.m. and don't eat again until 7 a.m., that's a 12-hour fast. And that counts as a type of intermittent fasting. Now, some people want to push it to 16 hours, which leaves you only 8 hours to get all the nutrients you need for the day. So it's a little more difficult for people. You can manage it, great, it won't hurt you. The human body is well adapted to starvation, poorly adapted to overnutrition. So you can fast for 3 days for a religious holiday of some type and you won't die. But intermittent fasting cuts out the after dinner eating, which can be 600 or 700 calories in front of the TV while you're stressed out. So that's the major benefit of intermittent fasting.
But not from experience. Nobody knows that.
Right.
The stress after,
Oh, the stress eating. Oh, yeah. No, actually,
um,
I have a tip for that. I used to tell my patients to make air pop popcorn, and they would just stuff the volume eaters would stuff themselves from stress, and it doesn't taste very good. So you have to spray it with mustard and water or whatever. They came up with all kinds of stuff to throw on the popcorn.
that's what they did back in the old world, the mustard water spray.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you heard this controversy over seed oils now?
Yeah, seed oils have always been out there. The vegetable oils, corn oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, etc. So monounsaturated oils are olive oil and avocado oil. Your body has a lot of saturated fat in it. So when you eat carbohydrates, you make saturated fat. So you are a saturated fat animal, okay? So the fats you eat, you've got to have omega-3s. Those are the fish oils. And they have now plant-based fish oils from algae that you can buy as supplements. So I take about 1,200 milligrams a day of fish oil, and that's very important. Then cut the total fat in my diet down to 20% or so of total calories. So I don't use any extra fat. So eat fat sparingly. It's 9 calories per gram compared to 4 calories per gram for carbohydrate and protein.
Just a couple quick more. Alcohol, small amounts.
Well, there is a lot of controversy over this recently because the American Institute of Cancer Research did a study where clearly a lot of alcohol increases the risk for breast cancer, liver cancer, other cancers, and alcoholism in this country is a huge, huge problem, about $400 billion a year. The good news is your generation is drinking less alcohol, gone down, down, down. They're also not smoking cigarettes as much, but they're vaping, but they're not smoking cigarettes. So we're seeing some shifts in behavior in our society. And the data, the way it works, this is called epidemiology, which is not cause and effect. It's you just count up how many cases you have, was the person drinking. And when you get to the 4 or 5 drinks a day, it's easy to see. If you just extend the line back down to 1 drink, it's, you can say, oh, there's a little bit of an increase. But I would say 1 drink per day for women, 2 glasses per day for men is the maximum. And that would be a drink is considered either a shot of whiskey, a glass of wine, or a glass of beer. Those are all equivalent.
Okay, I love it, Doc. And then the last question is there anything I can ask you that you won't know the answer to?
That's a good question.
You can't. I'm going to answer for you. No. I mean, you really know everything about everything. It's crazy.
Well, I keep learning. I'm a perpetual student, and I keep studying. I teach at UCLA in the winter quarter. I consult with several companies. I'm very interested in herbs and spices. Do a lot of research on spices. We just did a paper showing that cinnamon lowered blood sugar levels at a certain dose. So we're studying all these plant products and what they do. And I directed one of the first herbal centers in the United States back in 1998 to 2006. And we studied all these fantastic plants and all the secrets they have for everlasting health. So there's a lot more work to do, a lot more research to do, and I hope that your generation is going to carry all this forward.
We love you all. Like, we all love you universally because you drop that knowledge. You're the nicest, most humble man. You are my hero. I'm so lucky to have you. And thank you for sharing all these insights. We'll have a lot to work with here, Dad.
And I'm so proud of you, Adriana. You have a
I-
wonderful, wonderful
Dr.
career.
Heber. Okay, see you soon.
See you soon,
Mwah.
guys. Bye, baby.